And we welcome you into the Rowdy Studios. I'm Bass Masters. Way over there is Buzz Culler. And in the middle from Penske Racing, Jonathan Gibson, Vice President of Marketing and Communications. We picked a good week
for
you to come in. You got a victory at Dover on Sunday.
A good season, man.
Yeah, it's been a great season. We're very fortunate, and Kurt had a great run this week. And Brad, you know, he had some adversity on the racetrack in Dover and was able to battle through it. And, you know, he finished 20th, but we're right in the mix still. Both cars are.
Absolutely. And I got to ask you, just in light of that, I know you work on sponsorships a lot. How much does performance, you know, there's the business side, but then there's the performance side. How much does that affect sponsorship?
You know, when I think about the value equation with partners, I always say there's three things. Number one is performance. You got to deliver on the racetrack, and we're fortunate we have an organization that can consistently deliver. Roger's built a culture based on performance. The second thing is value for the partners from a marketing standpoint. So how do you provide the assets they need to be successful? And then the third piece is business to business. And we've got a great organization that can provide that. And so all 3 points we've been able to deliver on this year.
And you've been able to secure sponsorships, single sponsorships for an entire season for each car, which is rare these days. You see all these people piecing together 15 races here, 10 races there. What is it that you've been able to do differently to secure full season sponsors?
No, it's a great question. You know, we're very fortunate to have that. I think one of the things is the long-term relationship we have with our partners. We've been with Miller for 21 years now. And so the average tenure for all of our partners is about 16 years. And so having that long-term relationship allows you to plan together. And so not to say we'll never be in that situation where we have to have shared partnerships, but we like the continuity that it provides, the fact that, you know, wherever you go to a race, you're going to recognize the number 2 Miller Lite Dodge. And
yeah, there's so much equity in that car now.
It's unbelievable. You know, having Rusty in the car for, 15 years, Kurt for another 4, and then now Brad. And, you know, Miller, you know, when they went to Brad, you know, they were leaving a champion in Kurt Busch. And, you know, Brad's really stepped up and delivered this year, and he's been one of the most fascinating stories of the year.
He has, I think he's been the story of the year. Now, it's interesting because you were with Miller Lite, or with Miller at one point, and now you're with Penske. When you got to Penske, did you have this perspective of, you know what, guys, I've been on the other side. We could do this differently and it would work better for the sponsor?
Not at all. You know, I mean, Roger is Roger Penske.
He's
you know?
such a businessman. I mean, people don't really realize what a great businessman he is, not just a racer.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, working with him now has been a dream. When I was on the Miller side, I always said I'd love to have the opportunity to work for Roger, and you know, to get to work for Roger now and Tim Cindric, it's been really a dream come true. And I think that, you know, the reason he has the continuity in partners in 16 years of average tenure is because of the value and the service. And so, you know, being on the sponsor side helped me because there's things I know about the Miller business, but you know, I've learned a lot since being with the organization. You know, but having worked for Miller too, you know, it's been fun to watch the success this year because you know, I worked for Miller a long time.
You know how much it means to those guys.
Oh yeah, and I'm so proud of everything Brad's done, and I love going to a local market and seeing the distributors all jacked up about, you know, what he's done on the racetrack and how excited they are. So it's been fun to watch.
You know, you mentioned Brad, and I think about drivers and their personalities and how that fit with sponsors. It's always something we end up talking about. Well, does that guy make sense for that brand? How does that part of the equation come together? You mentioned, you know, Kurt was with Miller, and now he's with Shell Pennzoil. Now Brad is with Miller. How does that driver personality factor into it?
It's important because it's got to be believable. You know, it's got to be authentic. One of the things that, you know, Shell came to us and they wanted a champion. They wanted a race car driver that could win races and ultimately win the championship. And you know, Kurt's that guy. He's tenacious on the racetrack, and he knows how to win races. And when Miller came to us about Brad, they loved the fact that how authentic he was, how genuine, how he's a 26, 27-year-old kid that you know, has fun on the racetrack, but also knows how to have a good time off the racetrack. And so he's been a terrific fit for Miller, and it's been fun to watch.
Do you sit down with those guys and talk about, you know, I mean, obviously both Kurt and Brad, they have personalities that are, you know, they put it out there. They say what's on their mind. Do you have parameters that you talk about in terms of what their responsibilities are towards the sponsor? What are your expectations of them in representing the sponsor?
Yeah, I mean, we educate them on the partner's objectives and goals, and they're very informed from that perspective. But I will also say that one of the things NASCAR has been successful for over the last 30 or 40 years has been creating personalities with their drivers. And so, you know, we're not going to get in the way of that because it's important for the long-term future of the sport to have these personalities. And so, there's a line. They know what not to cross. And but as long as they don't do that, we're all for creating these brands, these driver brands.
And going forward for you guys, everything is, I mean, we've had an economically difficult time. How has that aspect been for you? How challenging has that made your job, basically?
It's been tough. The last 3 or 4 years has been tough. The one I tell people this often, that in putting together new partnerships, the two things that have changed with putting together new sponsorships is it takes longer to do. So, and typically in the past, you might be able to get a deal done in 3 or 4 months, and now it's 8, 9, 15 months. And then the second piece is you have to go higher in the organization than you've ever had to go. So a lot of these decisions are board decisions, and so you've got to go to the board of directors or at least the chairman and CEO. And so those are the two things that have changed given the recent economic times.
Gotcha.
But Mr. Penske's business interests beyond motorsports, I assume, give you additional opportunities to sort of, or carrots to dangle.
We're very fortunate. Roger's got a tremendous business. We've got 40,000 employees around the world, and many of our partners do business with us on the business-to-business side. So, Shell, as an example, is a terrific business with us across Penske Truck Leasing, Penske Automotive Group, but also, the performance on the racetrack is important to them as well. So, like I mentioned earlier, it's got to be all three pieces to work.
Well, very good. Jonathan Gibson from Penske Racing, thank you so much for stopping in. Really appreciate your time today.
Anytime.
Rowdy.com. Say it like it is.
Say what like it is?
Rowdy.com.